Okay, we're giving this microphone back to Barbara Anderson. She is head of a powerful group in Massachusetts known as the Citizens for Limited Taxation. It's why we have Prop 2.5 in Massachusetts, a great voice for the consumer and the taxpayer, Barbara Anderson.
I know some of you are escapees from Massachusetts, aren't you? And I honor that decision. But for those who don't know me, I moved to Massachusetts. I grew up in Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, which is a lot like New Hampshire, so I feel really at home here. And then you can kind of imagine the culture shock of living in Massachusetts. But I've been there working on taxpayer issues. I was the executive director, as Ms. said, of Citizens for Limited Taxation. And one thing we do have in Massachusetts that you don't have here is the initiative petition process. We can create our own laws, repeal laws. So we created a property tax limit in 1980. And what the people don't understand is that it's not like Proposition 13 in California. It's not a constitutional amendment. It's just a statute. It's a law. And can be repealed or amended at any time. So that's why it is very important to us, the taxpayer group, to always have a governor with a veto. And since 1990, when Bill Weld came in, that's what we had. It was great. So then we come around to 1990, 2002. And we no longer had a governor who was our friend, but we had an active governor. And it became clear to me that Jane Swift could not win. Now, by then I'd gotten used to having that veto pen sitting there in the corner office. I'd been used to having it grown up in the corner office, and I kind of panicked. And Mitt said he wasn't going to run against an incumbent, and it seemed okay for a while, but then over the months, it seemed more and more clear she could not win, and I was panicking. So I said to myself, how hard can it be to call the Olympics in Utah? So I picked up the phone, I punched a few buttons, 411, I get the phone number. Before I know it, I am talking to Mitt Romney's answering machine at the Olympics. So I said, and it was his voice, so I said, Mitt, you remember me, I'm Barbara Anderson, Executive Director, Citizens for Limited Taxation. I met you back when you were running for the Senate. And I know you're really busy with the Olympics, but when you're done with that, could you come back home to Massachusetts and save us? Thank you. Now, as it turned out, I wasn't the only one calling and begging. So it did come back, he did run, he did save us, and we had 4 very good years. So that's why I'm here. And I'm so glad that you're so speaking to me. So I have to kind of tell you, you've been hearing these things like Mitt couldn't accomplish things in Massachusetts. I was there, and you've all been watching, because you see it on television, you listen to our talk radio. And one of the things I have to tell you about, this was incredible. I wouldn't even, if I were in Iowa, I wouldn't tell this story because they wouldn't believe me. But you will believe me when I say that Massachusetts was about to pass a retroactive capital gains tax. 2 years retroactive. Now imagine this. You had saved up, you had a little business maybe, some property, you sold it off in order to send your kids to college, put your mother in assisted living, or just put it in some kind of investment for 4 or 5 years, and suddenly the state announces that they're going to tax you retroactively on that money. So fortunately, we had a governor who said that was crazy, you can't do that, and Mitt Romney made it clear he was going to veto it. Now, legislature is a lot of control down there sometimes, but you can't get a 2/3 vote to override a veto for a retroactive capital gains tax. So in my opinion, Mitt Romney saved Massachusetts because no one would ever have invested from there again. Now, a 2-year retroactive capital gains tax, and he said no. He also did a health care bill that he'll talk to you about probably himself, but as a taxpayer, I was paying for people who had a lot more money than I did and were living off the free care pool, and I had to pay for them. And now he has a bill that is about personal responsibility, 2 of my favorite words. But we can talk about the things that Mitt did as governor, but you have to understand, and I know in New Hampshire you can understand, the most important thing is what he would have done. The fact that he was there with that veto prevented all kinds of things from never happening at all. All the bright ideas they had for new taxes, people filing bills to kill Proposition 2.5, those things don't happen when you have a friend in the governor's office. And we had a friend with Mitt Romney. So we were so glad to keep that. So glad he gave us 4 years of respite. And now we're so glad that he is running for president because we need a grown-up.
Barbara, and her work, her tireless work in behalf of the taxpayers of Massachusetts has been heroic. I'm sure she'd just die and go to heaven if she came up here. She wouldn't have any work to do with no income tax, no sales tax. And she takes her inspiration from you, but she's been a great ally and friend to the taxpayer of Massachusetts, and I'm pleased and proud that she came here this morning to introduce me. I'm also pleased and proud to have Senator Jed Craig here. Please stand and be recognized, Senator Craig. Craig wrote a full-page ad in the paper this morning, in papers across New Hampshire. He actually wrote this himself, and so take a read. I think it's very instructive and helpful. I'm also happy to have Bruce Keogh, who's my state chairman of my campaign here. Bruce, please stand. I have an assortment of runimals, as Anna and I call them. My son Matt and 2 of his children, he has 4, Nicholas and Chloe. And my son Craig isn't here. Craig is in Wyoming, where yesterday Craig and Josh put the finishing touches on my winning the Wyoming caucus. My oldest son isn't here, but his son Joseph is here, wearing the Red Sox hat, of course. And Craig's wife Mary is here, along with Parker, who is sitting in the microphone. There we go. He's watching your grandfather do that way too much. We were in Nashua, and I was shaking hands at the street in Nashua. Last was during your Christmas celebration, where they closed the street, and I was going up and down. He was putting his hand on everybody. Hi, hi, hi. Yes, he still does that. Hi, hi, yeah, hi. There you go. And a little buddy politician, he was on the airplane doing that. His mom let him go up and down the aisle just to keep him busy. He was shaking hands with everybody. Hi, hi. Someone came up to his mom and said, you know what, he ought to run for president. And she said, if you only knew, if you only knew. Well, I'm honored to be here with such a crowd, with such a group. It's such an important time. This is such a critical time in our nation's history. We face such extraordinary challenges. There's so much ahead of us. There's such dramatic changes going on in the world. As I go across the country, and particularly as I've been across New Hampshire, but also Iowa, Michigan, and Florida, and some of the early states where we spend a great portion of our time, I keep hearing a very similar message. And that is people feel that Washington is broken. That state after state are able to deal with difficult challenges, get their schools, get their roads repaired, staff the National Guard, improve their healthcare system, but that Washington is fundamentally broken. And the partisanship and the bickering and the score settling and the insult hurling, that seems to occupy the mind and thought of the people in Washington rather than the needs and interests of the people of America. And so I believe it's high time for someone to go to Washington who's focused on helping the people rather than just helping his or her party. I'm also convinced if you watch those caucuses and the results of the caucuses in Iowa, you heard a message that was pretty interesting. They said, look, the people who've been in Washington a long time, that have all the Washington years of experience, they got overrun by the upstarts. They got overrun by the people who were new faces, who had new ideas and new energy. On our side, Governor Huckabee and myself put a big distance between ourselves and Senator Thompson and Senator McCain, the guys who've been around forever. And on the Democratic side, Barack Obama. He took all the arguments from those well-known, long-standing politicians, insiders in Washington, and he put a big distance between himself and them. Americans are not looking for Washington insiders. They're looking for change, and change is what we're going to give them. Now, one thing I heard as I went across the country, and as I've been here, is a lot of questions about why can't we fix this? Why is that still a problem? And I have a list up there, a to-do list. You can't see it all. I have to get the people behind there to duck down a bit so I can go through, oh, that's all right, don't worry. Just to go, these are the things I was hearing as I went across the country. Frustration that we are in such critical times for not dealing with these issues. Number one, I want to make sure that we make America safe. It's been a long time since September 11, 2001. We want to make our country safer. How do we do that? We want to strengthen our military with more troops and better equipment and better care for our veterans when they come home. We need better intelligence work. During the Clinton years, they shrunk dramatically the human intelligence capacity of our foreign services gathering intelligence. We need to rebuild that. And I want to strengthen our alliances with other nations. America is strong alone. But we're even stronger when we have friends standing with us. I will rebuild those ties with our friends. How long have we been listening to Washington saying they have a solution to end illegal immigration? It's been decades. They said it. Of course, they began with an amnesty program, and then that didn't work, so they tried another amnesty program, and that didn't work, so they got another one that looks like amnesty that they're planning on pushing through as well. I love the fact that in last night's debate, we had a lot of discussion about immigration. And everybody wanted to harsh words. Well, is this amnesty or is that amnesty? How about this? Does that qualify as amnesty? Look, here's what the truth is. And you listen to it. Senator McCain and many others like him feel that all those that have come here illegally, once you put the criminals aside, everybody else should be able to stay here for the rest of their life. In my opinion, that's a form of amnesty. In my opinion, that is wrong. That will only encourage more illegal immigration. Washington to be more concerned with the insults than with the issue. We're going to focus on the issue and decide what is the right thing to do for America, and that's to keep legal immigration alive and well, but to stop illegal immigration. Reducing taxes. Reducing taxes. How long have we heard we're going to reduce the tax burden on the middle-income Americans, and yet we have the alternative minimum tax taking a bigger and bigger bite. Families are having a tougher and tougher time making ends meet. It's why I proposed a middle-income savings plan. It's pretty straightforward. It says this: if you're making $200,000 a year and less, and that's 95% of Americans, you'll have a new tax rate on your savings. Interest, dividends, capital gains. The new tax rate is 0. Let people save their money tax rate. They've been telling us they'd cut the pork. There are always stories of pork. I don't know how long you've heard stories of pork. I heard them since the 1950s, and yet it keeps on going. Because after all the rhetoric that you see on the steps of the Capitol, when you get to the cloakroom in the Senate office building or in the Capitol itself, well, somehow all the pork ends up back in there again.
Same old story.
Same old story. I will veto bills that are packed with pork. I'll veto bills that exceed appropriations bills that exceed inflation less 1%. We're going to rein in excessive spending. Everywhere I've gone in New Hampshire and across the country, people keep telling me that there's one story after another about a veteran that's not getting the care he or she deserves. There are all these catch-22s. It's a military term, and it applies in spades in an unusual way to our military program. And as a result, we're going to have to go through and evaluate all of our veterans programs, make sure what's fair, what's not fair, fill in the gaps, and make sure we take care of our veterans properly. This says health insurance for everyone. I don't mean to stop the applause. I mean that.
that says health insurance for everyone, there are two approaches to health insurance. Only two. One is a Democrat way, which is to say we're going to have government take over health care and run it and give you insurance. And let me tell you, if that happens, then I don't want to show up at the hospital emergency room and have the guys that ran Katrina taking my blood pressure. I do not want that. The other way to make health care work is to get everybody in the system with private, free market insurance to get health care working like a market. I listened to the other fellows, even on the Republican side last night. They got ideas, but they don't get everybody insured. A lot of people have ideas. A lot of people have plans. But you saw it across the border. I got the job done, and that's what we need in Washington. I'm not going to go through every one of these. You were worried that I was, and then there's another page of them. I'm not going to go through every one of these because I want to make sure I get to your questions. But we can end our dependence on foreign oil. We can shrink and make simpler our federal government. We can grow our economy and keep good jobs. We can fix Social Security. I love listening to people who say, let me give you some direct language here. Let me tell you the truth. And that is Social Security is broken. Well, we all know that. But the question is, what are they going to do to fix it? And most politicians won't answer that. I will, and I know how we're going to fix Social Security. Put the people ahead of the selfish interest. There's so many lobbyists in Washington at the elbows of the politicians. I don't have to get elected with the support of lobbyists in my campaign. I've received more contributions from my campaign from more people than any of the candidates running for president. And the biggest contribution came from my wife, who said, okay, take some of our money and put it in as well. I don't have to answer to anybody but the American people. And finally, the last one out there says, strengthen our families. You saw a small segment of my family. The reason I'm in this race is I want to make sure that as America goes through this turbulent time of change, that America remains the world's most powerful nation. I don't envision a world where some other nation is a superpower and where we're a second-tier power. Because a world in that case is a world that would be very frightening indeed. America will stand for freedom for itself and for freedom-loving people around the world. We are a good nation. I don't ever apologize for America. Do we make mistakes? Well, of course. Any group of human beings will make mistakes, but we always act out of interest to protect that which is good and peaceful. We are a great and promising nation, and I will strengthen our families because I recognize that to keep America strong, the single most important thing we can do is have good families with moms and dads and uncles and aunts and cousins and grandparents who invest in themselves and their visions and their values in their kids. I will strengthen America's families with good schools and good health care. And by the way, with a wife that goes out and teaches kids that before they have babies, they should get married. It's going to be a time of choice for our party. Are we going to have somebody as a nominee who's going to be able to stand up to Barack Obama, who I think could very well be their nominee? He'll stand up and talk about change. He hasn't ever done it, but he'll talk about change, and he'll be able to stand up as he is right now against long-serving U.S. senators who talk about their experience. He just blows them away. Are we going to do the same thing and put another long-serving U.S. senator up against him for him to talk about? Or are we going to put somebody up, I hope it's me, somebody up who has spent his lifetime not just in politics, not in Washington, but changing things, changing businesses for the better, changing the Olympics for the better, changing a state for the better. Not by himself. I don't do that by myself. I do it with a great team of people that come together to help make change. I will change Washington, and I look forward to going toe-to-toe with Barack Obama, or if not Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. I can't wait to meet Hillary Clinton face to face. And Hillary, and for that matter, John Edwards, all three senators, they have so many ideas. You heard Hillary, she says she has a million ideas. Just not enough money to pay for them all, she says, that's for sure. But you know, the great thing about debating them is they'll talk about their ideas, and I'll talk about what I did. and what I accomplished. And I'll show that I brought change, and they only talk about change. We're going to keep America strong. We're going to go down that to-do list and get them accomplished. We're going to make sure that our future is brighter than our past, and that America will always be the hope of the earth. Thank you so much. I'm going to take some questions here from a number of you. I don't know whether there are microphones. Please. Yes. Thank you.
I've seen you in a long time. You too have the right stuff, Governor.
Thank you.
Question. Last night, I was very concerned because Senator McCain kept saying that you were the candidate of change. What's wrong with changing one's mind?
Well,
Badly?
there's nothing wrong with changing one's mind, but you know, some politicians, as I said, are more interested in insults than issues. And I'm interested in issues. And I changed my mind with regards to abortion. Let me tell you, I looked at the abortion issue when I was running for governor. I said I thought I'd keep government out of it, that my view was that abortion was wrong. I felt that was wrong, but that I'd keep government out. And then I became governor, and I became government, if you will. It no longer became a philosophical issue, it was a personal issue. And I simply couldn't sign a bill that would cause the creation of new life for the purpose of destroying it. And I acknowledged that. That was 3 years ago. And I'm not going to apologize for having changed my mind on that and becoming pro-life. And if you want somebody who's never changed their mind, then you're going to find somebody who oftentimes sticks with the wrong view. I saw an example of that just this morning on Meet the Press. Senator McCain was on there defending the fact that he voted against the Bush tax cuts. And when asked would he do it again, the answer is yes. He says he voted against the Bush tax cuts again. Ronald Reagan 101 was that lowering taxes helps working families, grows the economy, and creates more revenue for government. Lowering taxes helps us pull out of recession. That tax cut, those tax cuts that George Bush put in place helped grow our economy and make America more promising as it is today. He's simply wrong. Now, he's consistent, but he's wrong. And I'll take being right over being consistent every day of the week.
I brought my family from New Jersey to come see you because we don't see this in New Jersey, so congratulations.
This is real politics, I tell you. New Hampshire folks know how to do it right. When I sit here in the front row, I have to mention here, this is Brad Jones, who's the minority leader of the Republican House of Massachusetts. This is the most heroic. And, I mean, can you imagine being a Republican in the State House of Massachusetts? Stand up, Brad Jones.
Governor, it's pretty close to that in New Jersey these days, too.
Yeah.
Well, we hope to see you in the next couple of weeks coming to New Jersey. The one question I wanted to ask you is your point about Washington being broken. And I don't see on the list here balancing the budget. When I voted for Ronald Reagan in 1980, that was the premier platform. I hear nobody talking about balancing the budget. There's no right that any of us have to give debt to our next generations. Will you promise to submit a balanced budget in March of 2009?
I will submit a balanced budget. I won't tell you which year it is, all right? Because it's probably going to take a few years. It may take the end of my first term to get to a point to be able to submit a balanced budget because we're going to be completing the conflict in Iraq. But you can see on that chart, you can almost see on that chart, that there are numbers that go down beyond the 12 I've listed. And I'll make sure we put balance the budget on there. And the way I'm going to do that, the way I'm doing that, is by putting a cap on non-military discretionary spending at inflation less 1%. I'll veto bills above that. When bills have pork in them that I don't like, I will veto those bills. And I'm going to keep our taxes down. By keeping our taxes down, we grow our economy. By reining in spending, we'll be able to finally balance our budget. And I agree with you. It's time for us to have a balanced budget in America again. Oh, here's somebody right here, okay.
Okay. I'm Christina Heller, and I'm from Manchester. My issue is that, I was against the war before it started. I protested the war in Iraq. I didn't vote for George Bush. And now we've spent so much money on this war. I feel like, why should I have to continue to pay taxes for a war that I never supported from day one? It's something I'm fundamentally against.
And I understand it, and let me offer two things. One, about the war, and two, why you pay taxes for something you disagree with. And that is just a part of being an American is saying we have a democratic system and we choose a leadership, and when that leadership makes a decision, we all agree collectively that we'll fund that decision with our funding. Even though there are a lot of things, by the way, there are a lot of things the federal government pays for. I wish my tax dollars were not going to. But as part of the contract we have in living in this free land, we agree to abide by the vote of the majority and our elected representatives. So even those that don't agree with the war in Iraq are part of this entire effort. And some of our soldiers, likewise, probably don't agree with the war, and yet they have sworn an oath to follow the commander-in-chief, and they do it, and we respect them for that. But let me come back, if you let me, to the conflict in Iraq and why it's the right thing for you to be funding it today. I won't argue with you about the beginnings of the war because that's time past. I supported the war, still do support that decision in that regard. I believe we made a number of errors as we got into the country. I think our intelligence was faulty. We didn't know what kind of a situation we were getting into, and I think we were underprepared and underplanned for what happened, and it created a whole mess that took a long time for us to get our handle on. I do believe that General Petraeus, and Senator McCain was right in saying he was one of these pushing for a troop surge, and General Petraeus took that idea, whether from him or someone else, I don't know, but I give credit to both. General Petraeus had this brilliant insight, not just of saying, give me more men and more women. It wasn't just more people, it was let's change the strategy, and it needs new people to help. The strategy change was this. He said, instead of having our troops go back into safe zones at night and just go out during the day and fight Al-Qaeda, let's go out and secure the public population so that enterprise can begin again and people can go to school again, and that will be a better way to fight Al-Qaeda. That change in vision and mission, and the additional troops that allowed them to carry it out, is working. And you see now people going back to school, businesses opening up, and most miraculously, in some respects, you see the Sunnis that have been silent up to the Al-Qaeda folks. They've now said, we don't want to be close to the Al-Qaeda folks, and they're identifying Al-Qaeda operatives so that we can go get them together, and we're getting rid of Al-Qaeda. And I think, if you think about it, from where we are right now, it has to be in our national interest to make sure that Al-Qaeda does not have a safe haven in Iraq from which they can recruit and train and finance and launch attacks against us and our friends around the world. And so we're doing God's work now, in my opinion, to keep Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah and others from establishing that kind of safe haven. And I will not walk out and put at risk our safety by having our troops pull out before that job is done. Thanks.
My son Jack is 8.5, and since he's been 3, he and our entire family have lived with the effects of type 1 diabetes. It's 24/7, 365. I think every day, about every hour of every day, what the effect is like. My question for you is, what is your stand on stem cell research, including embryonic and other types of stem cell research?
Great, thank you. And this, I know from experience, my answer is going to be less than exciting to most of you. Because I really got to know stem cell research as we faced this issue in my state. I received a bill that said all kinds of research were going to be allowed. So for instance, we would be allowed under the bill in our state to clone human embryos, create brand new human life by taking donor eggs and cells from the living adult and putting them together and create a new embryo, experiment on it, and then kill it. We'd also be able to do something known as embryo farming, which is taking donor sperm and donor eggs, putting them together in the laboratory, and I can imagine rack after rack of these human embryos being born, and then being created, and then being experimented upon, and then being killed. And those things I said no to. I said, I want to make it legal. Experimentation and ultimate destruction. I said I would allow private industry to continue to use so-called surplus embryos from in vitro fertilization for their research. I would not make that illegal. But where would I put government dollars? Where would I invest our money? The place I would invest our money is where I thought it had the best promise. And I spoke with a number of leaders in the field, and one, Dr. Hurlbut from Stanford, spoke about what he called alternative methods of creating embryo-like cells, which could be obtained in large numbers and which would have enormous benefits over the other methods. He spoke about something ultimately that has become known as direct reprogramming. And a lot of people said, oh, you can't do that, which is really simple. He said, take a skin cell from an adult and then change the DNA in the skin cell and turn it into a stem cell. Now that sounds impossible. But about 2 months ago on the front page of USA Today, they said it's been done. Japanese and American scientists did it. What's great about this is that as a source of technology and innovation, instead of having to take a cell from someone else's body and a DNA that comes from somebody else and try to put it into ourselves, you're using your own cell to create cures. And then Dr. Hurlbut had another idea, and this is known as altered nuclear transfer. He says when you're going to create a new embryo, shoot a couple of the let's see, what are they called? Shoot a couple of the genes in the chromosome so that you can create a human embryo. You can get embryo-like cells, but it's not a human embryo. So in the world of science, you're finding ways to create stem cell research opportunities with the embryo-like cells without having to create new life, avoiding, therefore, the moral hazard, and at the same time, generating better sources. And that's why better sources are what they call pluripotent cells that can be used in elements to cure disease. And the good news is it doesn't require the invasive technique of taking eggs from women, which is highly invasive and very limited in the number that can be obtained. And it has a plentiful source. And you're going to see, in my view, enormous strides because of that great headline we saw in USA Today. And that's why, by the way, most of the Senate voted in favor of these alternative methods of getting stem cells. I know 2 senators who voted no, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And I want stem cells, including those stem cells from those new altered methods, and that, in my view, is the best way for us to get the kind of cures we need.
My teacher was talking about like how in like 4 years we'll be able to vote and stuff, and that the president would change us stuff for us. When you become president, what would you do for the kids of America?
Oh, that's a good question. One of the things I want to do for the kids of America is to help kids have moms and dads to care about them and have time to devote to their life. I really believe that it's a big advantage to have a mom and a dad. And even if moms and dads get divorced, you have a mom and a dad. In some cities, the majority of kids being born today only have one parent. So I want our kids to learn that it's great to be able to get 2 parents. Number 2, I want you to have good schools, really good schools. And all sorts of ideas about how to get better schools, particularly by people who have a financial interest in what the answer is. I don't have a financial interest in what the answer is. My interest is in how well our kids are going to do. And the things that make a real difference in schools, we saw in our own state. One is to make sure we have great teachers. And I want to pay better teachers better pay. For those very, very, very few teachers that really are not good at teaching, I'd like to help them find another career. School choice. I'd like kids and their parents to be able to choose whether to school at home or school at charter school. Those of you from Massachusetts will know that we fought very hard for something that seems unusual, and that was we fought very hard to have something known as English immersion. You see, in our state, we taught people in the language selected by their parents or by the school district, which frequently was not English. They were being taught in school in Spanish or Cambodian, and we fought for a ballot initiative that said, when you come to Massachusetts schools, you're going to get taught in English, and it won because to be successful in America, you got to speak the language. I want to tell you as well that I like rewarding excellence. We have high standards in our schools. We test our kids before you can graduate from high school. You got to pass a graduation exam. I like that. I like the fact that we test our kids. But you know what? It's not just the stick. Okay, you have to pass this exam to get out of high school. We put in place a pretty big carrot. And I fought very hard. There were a lot of people that didn't like this idea. See, most people say, if you're going to give state money out for scholarships, it's got to just go to the poor people. And I do believe in helping the poor that can't afford college. Absolutely. We send about $90, $95 million a year out to help kids that are poor go to college. But I said, how about the kids that are coming from middle-class homes that are doing real well in school? Shouldn't we help them as well? And so we fought for and got passed the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. And now in Massachusetts, if you graduate in the top quarter of your high school class, the top quarter, you get that scholarship, 4 years tuition-free to the Massachusetts public institution of your choice. I can't resist it with Representative Frost here and with Minority Leader Brad Jones here. I can't resist bragging on our students a bit. These ideas, high standards, better teachers, school choice, teaching in English, scholarship program, and many other ideas that have been there even before I was governor, including some of those. We've seen a real impact. You see, every 2 years, the states in America are asked to carry out an exam. It's called the NAEP exam. 4th graders and 8th graders are tested in all 50 states, and they're tested in English and math. They call it the nation's report card. That's what educators call it. And I was proud that the last 2 times this test has been given, my 4th graders came out #1 in 50 states in English and #1 in 50 states in math. And my 8th graders came out #1 in English and they came out #1 in math. These Republican principles of choice and learning in English and high standards and rewarding excellence, they work, and I want to see them here.
I want to say that we've had one too many presidents to Arkansas. It's the nomination and then going all the way. But one of the things that concerns me a lot, and I think concerns a lot of people in New Hampshire, is the fact that the federal government has gotten so large, so intrusive in our lives, both in personal lives and in business. You said you're going to make it smaller. You know, the other side talks about special interest. The federal government is the largest special interest.
Boy, you hit the nail on the head with that comment. You know that. Did you all hear that? The federal government is the largest special interest in this country. That's the one we got to rein in.
It's the largest employer, has the largest budget, and the employee unions and folks that work there are running the federal government, not the politicians, not the people. I'd like to know what you think you can do to really reduce the size of the federal government. Not just cap the budget a little bit, but really reduce it, take it down.
Well, this is going to be the battle. This is going to be the battle of my administration. And I'll tell you, it was even the battle in my administration in Massachusetts. I came in and we have a bureaucracy there. And I said to my chief of staff, Beth Myers, where's Beth? I know she's around here somewhere. She's back there. There, she's in the back of the room. I said, Beth, one thing I got to make sure of, and that is when we leave state government after 4 years, there are fewer employees in state government than when I came in. And let me tell you how hard that is. Because there are always new government programs of the federal government coming along. To qualify for this, you need to have people doing that. To qualify for this program, you need people doing that. And by the way, I wanted to add to our state police. I thought it had gotten too small. So I built our state police to the largest we'd ever had. And so I got that done, and then I added to our DNA lab and to our forensics lab. So I knew those things I had to add to, and Homeland Security was very critical. So some areas I knew I had to grow, but I wanted overall government to come down, including those additions. And it was a nonstop battle. Every year, it was with agency after agency, often led by good Republicans, just needing a few more people. If they get this done, just a few more people. The only way I found to hold back the number of staff is to kill programs. Because programs require people, and you have to look at a program and say, does this thing really make a difference? Is it helping or not? In some cases, it may be an okay program, but we just don't need it. We're going to have to go through the federal government with a weed whacker. And we're going to go through program after program. we need this? Is it making a difference? Could it be done better at the state level? I'm a federalist. Let things be done at the state level. There are a lot of agencies, in my opinion, that are going to be put on a watch list, which is they perform real well or they're going to be gone, or they're going to be merged and combined with others. And we're going to have to just slim back the federal government, and it's going to be a nonstop effort. I'd love to have a person working with me there whose entire job is just going through and getting rid of departments of the federal government, agencies and programs, and we will do it. And that's the best way I know to rein in the excessive growth of a bureaucracy which could stifle our entire economy and our future. Thank you.
Dr. Roby, good morning, White House. My wife from Massachusetts this morning. I have a question about your foreign policy.
Yes.
What's your position on the upcoming independence of Kosovo?
I believe that Kosovo should be made independent. The Kosovarians are interested in becoming an independent nation, breaking off from Serbia. It's a challenging setting. The decision was made at the Dayton Accords a long time ago that after a period of time, which has now been reached, I think December 10th was the day, that Kosovo would be able to become independent, and nothing has happened. And so the folks at Kosovo are saying, hey, nothing's happened, we want to become independent. The Russians are standing with the Serbs saying, no, they can't be independent. And we're saying, yes, they can be. And so we're in a setting of some conflict here. I support Kosovo's independence and our agreement to do so. At the same time, I want to make sure that we can do this in a way that does not lead to civil war and loss of life. We have it in Bosnia. We have a United Nations effort that's trying to keep the peace, a NATO effort that's trying to keep the peace, rather. And we're going to have to determine how we make sure that we keep the peace in Kosovo after a period of independence. And we're going to have to work with the Russians to make sure they don't intrude in this. Now, I know that Kosovo is not something all of you have on the tip of your tongue here, but this is something which is going on right now. Again, it's pretty classic, isn't it? America believes that a group of people, ethnic Albanians, 90% ethnic Albanian, who have asked to be independent of the nation that surrounds them, Serbia, should have the right to become independent. And the Russians are saying, no, they can't. In the Dayton Accords, we all agreed they would. But we give it 10 years to happen. It hasn't happened yet. And we'll stand with Kosovo for Kosovarian independence. Thank you. I'm going to take one more question. I'll let you go. Yes, back here.
Well, I come all the way from New Jersey. I'm a George Mason student, and I actually came all the way from Virginia along with my other fellow George Mason students.
Thank you for the Virginians here today. You know, this is the politics in New Hampshire. I mean, the whole nation watches what goes on here. It's really fun. You guys get to be participating in this presidential sweepstakes here. The whole world loves it and watches it. And more people are coming. You don't think they want to be part of it. They can't vote, at least they're not supposed to. And they want to be part of it. But what's your question?
I noticed that on your to-do list, number one, to make America safer, you talk about better intelligence. Last night during the debate, I saw that you and Representative Ron Paul had some disagreement on your intelligence. Today I went to the website, the FBI's most wanted for Osama bin Laden. Now, Osama bin Laden is deemed as the mastermind of 9/11. He is the pretext for why we went to Afghanistan and basically started a war on terror. Why is it, though, that today when I went to almost over 6 years after the fact, that Osama bin Laden on that website is not being responsible for 9/11. The FBI concluded that there's not enough evidence to show that he is responsible for 9/11. Where do you get the authority for saying that Osama bin Laden is the mastermind of 9/11 and that we should capture someone like him when the FBI doesn't even think that there's enough evidence to say that he's guilty of 9/11, minus the other things?
I really don't have to spend a lot of time trying to assess whether I want to get Osama bin Laden. I want to get Osama bin Laden dead or alive. I want to get it any way we can. I'll go anywhere we have to go to get it. I can't speak for what's on the FBI's list or what things they could think they could convict him of from a criminal standpoint, but there's no question but that he is a terrorist and a mastermind and a leader of a terrorist effort that's trying to bring down all moderate nations. There's no question but that he's behind the assassinations that you see throughout the world, the attacks upon innocent civilians and the leaders of those civilians. So I want him. I'll go after him. I think we're going to have to do a better job. I think we've been trying, but I don't know whether we've been trying as effectively as we have to be. I am not yet privy to all of the classified information and top secret information our government has. I intend on becoming privy to that at some point. And when I am, I will bring to that issue the same kind of thinking power and perspectives of other people and deliberateness that I've brought to other issues that I've faced in my life that are tough. That is, we'll develop a new course to find the guy and to bring him to justice. We face this issue about going after these guys as big as I said last night. It's not just a military effort. It is Osama bin Laden. We need to get him. But it's also a movement in the world of Islam. And it was a movement that began years ago. And it was popularized by this Mr. Qutb, who had as his view this radical view of Islam. And the reason that the world of Islam, he says, isn't controlling the world is because they're not living their religion in a sufficiently faithful way, that all the governments need to be replaced with a religious caliphate. And so they're trying to bring down not just us, but all Muslim nations as well. They assassinated Anwar Sadat of Egypt because he wasn't Muslim enough. And they went after Mrs. Bhutto, apparently, because she was against terror and the violence of Al-Qaeda. And they're going to go around the world trying to kill people, and the attacks by these folks are all over the world. And we're going to have to work together with other great nations to very seriously and effectively, comprehensively help strengthen Muslims, mainstream Muslims, so they can reject these violent and these extreme within them. Because we sure as heck can't go in every country in the world and fight them for them. They're going to have to fight them themselves, and they're doing that. They're doing it in Pakistan, Indonesia, the Philippines, and other parts of the world. And we're going to stand alongside them and help them in this great effort. Now let me close with just a brief experience. Because at a time like this, I guess I feel awfully patriotic and humbled by how many folks are here, how many are standing up listening after all the time you've spent here today. And it is my confidence in the American people. You see, I am optimistic about our future. I am convinced that our future is brighter than the past. I know a lot of people are afraid of change. We're all nervous when change is involved, because we're not quite sure where it'll go. But change with the right leadership and the right resources, and those resources are the heart and passion of the American people and their innovative capability. Change with those things in place can lead to a better circumstance and a better outcome. You have to have people who know how to work in change and how to make change work for us. That's why I began my campaign in the Ford Museum of Innovation in Michigan, showing that I want to tap into the innovative spirit of the American people so we can adapt to the changes in the world and emerge even stronger as a nation. And strong we are because we are united. I listen to candidates who try and divide us, based on people being wealthy or poor, based on people being black and white, or male and female, or any other difference. And I say, shame on that. Because America is strong as we're united. And Americans are united on the matters that matter most. I've seen that time and again throughout my life. I was in Boston. I get a call from one of my assistants who, this is when I was governor, she said, we have a soldier coming home today from Iraq. And as I recall, she said his parents live a long way away and can't be at the airport to welcome him. And they wonder if you could go to the airport. Or our staff wondered if I could go to the airport. And I said, well, sure, I guess. And then she said, by the way, he's not coming home in the passenger compartment. He's coming home in a casket. And so I got in the car and we drove to the airport, Logan Airport, drove out on the tarmac, and the big U.S. Air jet came in and stopped in front of the terminal. If you know that terminal, great big terminal with a big glass wall that looks out over the aircraft. It stopped in front of that glass wall, the people got out. Then the luggage came down the conveyor belt, was taken away, and finally the casket was lowered. And the National Guardsmen that were there with me stood at attention and saluted. And I put my hand on my heart, and a heavy heart indeed it was, as I thought about the loss of that soldier's life and the sadness in the family to lose one of their sons. And then they took the casket and put it in the hearse, and I happened to just glance up into the terminal and that big glass wall up there. It seems that the people who'd gotten off the aircraft had noticed the commotion, the patrol cars and the National Guardsmen, and so they'd stopped against the windows to see what was going on. And then I guess people walking by at the terminal had seen the people at the windows, so they came up to see what was going on. So as I looked up, there was a big crowd there, all all against the glass. And every person I saw had their hand on their heart. Not just the Republicans, not just the Democrats, not the men, the women, the rich, the poor. Every single person had their hand on their heart. We are a nation united. We face extraordinary challenges. We can overcome them with the ingenuity, the innovative spirit, the heart and passion of the American people. We're going to have to fix Washington to get that job done. It is what I do. I know how to turn things around. I did it in business. I did it at the Olympics. I did it in Massachusetts. Well, that's a tough place to do it, too. I did it with great people. I don't do it by myself. I do it with great people. And I'll do it in Washington with great people to make sure that America's future is brighter than our past and that we always remain a great nation. Thank you so much.